Pomegranate Grove. I'm joining Mandy and Sharon today, so this is my first appearance on the podcast. I'm Cassidy, and today we're going to be diving into the topic of reversals, which is really exciting because there's a lot of conflicting, information about reversals. Should you read them? Should you not read them? Why you should read them? All that good stuff. So we're going to have a really nice conversation about if we read them and what our thoughts are and how they've worked in our practice.
So who here reads reversals?
I do.
Me.
I do. Yeah, we all do. Yeah. Have you always read reversals?
I didn't even know it was an option not to.
Yeah, I'm the same. How about you, Cassidy?
Yes, I started, because you pick up the book and it always gives you the description and then it says reversal. So I did just naturally start doing them. There's certain tarot systems that I don't actually use reversals for, which we can talk about in a little bit. But yeah, whenever I read with a deck that's illustrated, always read with reversals.
Yeah, me too. It didn't occur to me to not read with reversals, although when I was learning the tarot, I did learn obviously the upright first, and I found I struggled a bit with the reversals, but I just naturally persevered with it because I just thought that's what you had to do.
I think that's where a lot of the controversy comes from, because when you look at a book, I mean, mine was so many years ago that I don't actually remember the struggle, but you guys are a little less than 112 years ago. But if you remember, when you look at a book, and first of all, even in the upright position, the traditional meanings are conflicting. It's got things that just like, how is this possible? And then you throw reversals in and you're like, you know what I mean? I do remember that.
I remember once I was doing telephone, because once I became what I thought was competent at reading the tarot, I became a telephone tarot reader. And I do remember this man, because when you're a telephone tarot reader, you don't know who you're going to get. The phone rings and there's a voice there and you just go into it. But anyway, this man, actually, I did a reading for him, and he actually then turned around and said, I'm actually a tarot reader myself. And he said, I don't read reversals. He said, they were painted upright, so I don't believe that they should be read in any way other than the way round that they were painted. And I thought, well, he's making a bit of a valid point, but that was the first time somebody who was a reader actually kind of confronted me about the fact that I was reading in reverse. And that's sort of stuck in my mind a little bit, because I've got to say, since then, I'm quite a snob about reversals. I don't know about you two.
I'm a little bit of a snob.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been in tarot circles before where I've been amongst people and study groups and such things where you meet folks that do not read reversals, but I've never met someone who actually learned them and then got rid of them. It's people that either just don't.
Person, isn't there?
Sharon? I know one person.
It's probably the same person.
Yep, that she just does not like reversals, so we're not going to force her to use them, and she reads daggone good enough. The way she reads, that nobody's going to tell her to do it any different. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. Are you accurate? Are you consistently accurate? And are you giving the information? Because there are people out there that just absolutely do not want to read with reversals. I love reversals because they take away that black and white. They put shades of gray in there, and you have to rely on your intuition. But if reversals terrify someone or make them just feel like they're not really doing a good job, I'm never going to force someone to do them. but there are now knockdown drag out fights on the internet in forums, where people just rip into each other because they do or do not do reversals. I know you've seen them, Cassidy, or where people, it's like cat fights.
I mean, my snobby opinion on it is this: apart from that one person who, and there probably are other, she's not going to be the only one, but I do believe that the reason that I think there's two, maybe three reasons why somebody would not read in reverse. Reason number one, fear. Now, fear splits two ways. First, fear that they're too frightened that the reading is going to come up all negative, because it's going to be turning positive cards into negative cards, and therefore you're going to be giving too much bad news. I have heard that as a reason not to read reversals, and that is absolutely nonsense, because I don't believe that a positive card, because it comes up in reverse, has suddenly turned into a negative card. And that's because we look at reversals in a way that it's not tipping it on its head or turning it around 180 degrees. It's just saying there's a reason why this card don't just jump to the upright. There's something more, you work a little bit harder. There's a little reason why you can't just go throwing yourself into what you would have said if it was upright. So that eradicates the first reason for not using reversals, because they're too scared it's going to be a negative reading. That's just rubbish. That is just rubbish. It just means it's going to be a more detailed reading. It's just going to have more subtlety. It's going to have more, it's going to have certain things in it that you wouldn't have spotted in the upright. Yeah. That's how I look at it. The second version of fear is that the reader is genuinely terrified that if it comes up reverse, they're not going to be sure what to say. I understand that, because I was like that when I first did reversals, but it's just a question of persevering with it till you get comfortable with it, and learning from someone who does know what they're doing, how to do it properly. It's not like there is a set interpretation on each card. It's not like, oh, the card means this upright, that reverse. That's the problem.
Well, that's part of the problem too, is the people who do read with keywords. And I'm going to tell you, I read with keywords for about 10 years when I started. My readings were still accurate, but they were flat because they were keywords. So a reader, just because they read keywords, doesn't mean that they're not accurate or consistent. It's just they're missing those subtleties you were talking about, and the ability to draw more out.
So much stuff that you can get, yeah.
If a reader is reading with keywords, the reversals are 78 more keywords you have to remember, and that's overwhelming. So I think the main thing is just getting rid of those keywords and really seeing the cards and allowing your intuition to take over sometimes.
I know. Well, I think the other reason, apart from fear, why people wouldn't read in reverse is laziness. That they're too lazy to bother to learn how to do it in reverse, because I'm telling you, once you know how to read in reverse, your readings just become so much richer and just so much more interesting. And not only do each individual cards become interesting, but you start to get patterns with the whole thing as well that you wouldn't possibly get if you didn't have reversals. So there's so many reasons why you're going to be a better reader if you do read in reverse. And I've got to say, and this sounds terrible, and I'm going to get really shouted down and screamed at for this by those that don't, but if I was going to a tarot reader for a reading who didn't read in reverse, I don't think I would trust the reading. I wouldn't trust the reading. I would just think, well, sorry.
Yeah.
I expect a tarot reader to read in reverse. If I was paying money, I would expect them to to be using every possible technique going to give me the maximum amount of information.
And Cassidy, go ahead. I see you trying to talk and we just running right over you. Bless your heart.
No, it's all good. But just when you're saying too, like if they turn that card over, I want to go back to that point, and they don't know what to say, that goes back to just being well practiced in your craft, right? Same thing with looking at court cards when you first start. If you are at a point where you're still learning, like, allow yourself time to learn that. You know, if you like, you don't need to be an expert at it immediately, and reversals are going to trip you up. It might take months before you turn over a reversed card and you feel comfortable and confident to read that as quickly as upright cards. And the other thing I wanted to say too is when you start reading reversals, it gives the upright cards so much more oomph, because not only did, I got my Queen of Swords, but she's upright. You know, there's a possibility that card showed up, and then there's a possibility of, did it turn up upright or reverse? So it gives so much extra power
totally
in that sense.
That. Yeah.
And it really feels to me without reversals that I'm missing half of the vocabulary. It's like learning a new language, but not learning all the words. You know what I mean?
I don't even know if it's half the vocabulary, Sharon. I think it's more than that, because of all the one thing that reversal says to me is you can't pretend I'm upright, right? You cannot. I came to your reading reversed for a reason. So the first thing you have to do is acknowledge that I'm in reverse. Now, if you want to read me upright first, just to kind of like get the feel of me, but then you're going to have to kind of like work out why I'm reversed. And there's a whole load of possibilities. Like maybe I am the complete polar opposite, but maybe I'm something else. And I can think of so many examples of cards in readings that I interpreted it such and such a way because it was reversed, and I would never have done that interpretation had it been upright. Things like the Wheel of Fortune, that arrow pointing in different directions. You know, if the Wheel of Fortune is telling me something about directions, it's essential that you can either read it upright or reversed, you know, because that's one of its functions, is that arrow. It's not always its function, but, you know, I mean, I'm just giving a really obvious example there.
Yeah. It's like the people that are afraid because of the news that they might receive from it. It's not always, like you said, the polar opposite. No. Sometimes it's a lessening of, sometimes it's too much of something. It's reversed for a reason. And if we don't have those reversals, when I read, I feel if I don't have those reversals, I'm just not getting all the information that my client needs to move forward. It's just another way of sugarcoating it.
It's very automatic. I don't know if you two are both like this, but like when I read, I'm not particularly into oracle decks. It's not that I'm against them. I've just not gone that way. But the one oracle deck I have got, that I have used on sort of, you know, quite a few occasions, is the Monology deck. Now, you can't read that in reverse, right? You can't. It's not right for it. First of all, a lot of it is moon, so it's just this. The picture is the same, you know, especially if it's the full moons or whatever. It doesn't make any difference whether it's upright or reverse. But secondly, it has a little sort of description on the bottom that is very much sort of part of it. But when I am doing Moonology, I'm still reversing the cards in my shuffling, like, because I just automatically sort of like do it. I have to think, oh, hang on, no, I won't be reading this in reverse. I find it like really hard. It is like a sort of muscle memory thing to shuffle in reversals.
I don't think I could read without reversals. Now, I have a student. She's been a student with me about a year, but we really went heavy into it because it was just a friend thing at first. And then she actually came on as my student last year. And she refused. She had read all the forums and she was on the team no reversal, and she refused to read reversals. I wasn't going to force her to, because you never force somebody to do what they are completely opposed to. You can't make a good reader by forcing them to believe what you believe. You show them every tool available, and whether or not they choose to use those tools is ultimately up to them. But she'd gotten to a point where all the cards, she was reading them all upright, but every reading she did was like, wow, I didn't see that coming. Super negative, like really trying to pull the bad, the worst out of the cards. Some of it was like, I don't. And she was like, but they're all upright. I got to figure out which way they are. I was like, uh-huh. And so she started just for herself and just in our sessions, started using reversals just to see if she could do them. Once she started using them, she was like, oh my God, now I'm not having to guess. Because what was happening was she was getting a hit, but then second guessing that hit because she didn't have anything to indicate that that energy was wonky. So she finally, when she decided to use, it's just another tool, but it is an incredibly invaluable tool.
Yeah.
And when she started using that tool, her readings took off like lightning. It was amazing to watch the transformation in her when she wouldn't look at the cards and go, it's, yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get like too much into this, but with astrology, which is very kind of complicated, and I read tarot for a long time without knowing a single solitary thing about astrology. Like that came later. But with astrology, it's all about you've got certain planets that are very, very good energies and certain planets that are very challenging energies, and equally you've got very, very good connections and challenging connections. But combined into all that are techniques and tools, exactly what you're saying, that make the bad planets less bad and the good planets less good, or so that you start to get spectrums. It's naturally built into astrology that is thousands of years old, what I'm talking about. So why shouldn't it be in the tarot? The having the ability to reverse things starts to open up the spectrum of possibilities with the cards, and it's kind of like the universe's way of exactly what you said, Sharon, with your student, of kind of indicating which way to go with it.
Yeah.
And then you're still using your intuition as to sort of to what degree do I kind of make this, not so good or not so bad or whatever, to what degree is where your intuition would be, and relating it to the other cards around it and things, so it just in a way, like you said, Cassidy, it makes your job a lot easier. But in other ways, you also feel you have to, you might spend a little bit more time on a card because it's come up reversed, because you say, it's reversed. Now, that means I can't use the kind of like the all singing, dancing, upright version of it. So let me just think about this. What is my intuition telling me? So you might give it a beat to tell you. It's amazing reading.
How many times have we even had to stop a beat and look at an upright card and say, where does this fit in, before our brain went,
It's interesting because we're doing it all together a lot of the time with Harleed as well, and we're watching each other doing readings, and those moments of like we see someone like really concentrating on it. It's like, hold on a minute, hold on, I've got it right. And it really is all that kind of, all those tools and all those techniques that we've got and the intuition all coming together. It's very exciting. I mean, I think it is,
and I love
a breakthrough, isn't it? Sorry, Cassidy, go on. Yeah,
no, I loved what you had to say too about directionality with the wheel, because absolutely, like, there is such a range of what a reversed card can mean. It can be something completely different from the upright, or in some cases you're now just facing that card the other way, right? Like a really good example would be like one of the knights. like the Knight of Swords. Is he running into the rest of your spread, or reversed? Is he maybe running away from the rest of your spread? These little nuances, if you look at directionality, if you're working with larger fixed position spreads, or even just like tableau type spreads, what it does, especially if you're looking at directionality and how these cards are interacting. Like you might have two positive cards, but they're facing away from each other.
Yeah.
Does that tell you something a little different if they both came up reversed and they're now facing each other? Maybe they're going through some shit, but they got each other's back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's so many nuances to looking at cards in reverse that way.
I mean, I know this was an upright card, but like when I found that passport, right, I used the directions because I got the page of coins, who's holding the coin up and looking up, and I said the passport's upstairs, right? And then I got the 6 of Swords reversed. Now that is a ship sort of sailing off, but in reverse I just went, it's coming back, and I went, it's upstairs. And I went, where do you normally keep the passports? And my sister, who it was for her son had lost his passport, she said, oh, it's usually kept in this chest of drawers in one of the bedrooms. And I went, well, it's returned back to where it came from. Now I got that because the 6 of Swords was reversed. Hello? And she went, no, we've looked there. I went, go and look again. It had fallen down behind the drawer.
Yeah.
Sorry, people that don't read
So
reverse.
cool.
How would you have found that passport? Please tell me your answer.
I got a Page of Pentacles reverse story too that I like wanted to share during this. So it's cool you just brought that up. But this was when someone had asked how someone would react to what they had done. They hadn't talked about something. There was a conflict and they were about to see each other for the first time in a while. And I got the Page of Coins reversed. And you know what I said? I was like, they really feel like you dropped the ball on this. Quite literally dropped the ball. I actually got feedback from that person who called me back and said that was what they said word for word. That's what they said to them. They said, look, I really feel like you dropped the ball on this. And I'm like, that's just insane, you know? And all that was a very visual cue of that card coming up upside down.
Yeah. It does come down to the relationship that you've got with your higher power, with the universe, that sort of thing. Like the universe, or whoever it is you are corresponding with, will know if you read in reverse, and will know if you know anything about astrology. So the universe will send you the card in the right way up, or upwards or reverse, because it has a certain expectation about how you are as a reader. So to be fair, I don't want people that are just learning and haven't got comfortable yet with reverse to kind of like think, oh, this means my readings are not going to be accurate or any good. It just means the universe is kind of handling the level that you are at the moment. But so I'm just sitting here call it arrogant or whatever, but we're just sitting here saying, please sort of persevere with learning reversals, because it will open you up to so many more interpretations and possibilities with your readings that you can feel confident about. That's the point, that you can feel, I know I meant to say this because the universe sent me this in reverse for a reason, and if it hadn't, I wouldn't be able to say this.
Those reversals go a long way toward opening up intuition. And I love what Cassidy said about, you can't just read a book and expect to be able to do it right away. You've got to practice. You've got to have feedback. You had to practice reading them upright too. And yes, it's a lot of work, but it's very well worth it.
Yes.
But if somebody comes to me and says, I don't read reversals, I'm not going to force them to or tell them how silly they are. I might not go to them for the readings, but for the most part, I am very strongly, firmly believing in, if there's something makes someone uncomfortable, I am not going to force them to do that.
That is right. I mean, that attitude, right. I mean, I did go for a paid reading a couple of years ago with someone who said they'd been reading for 35 years, and amongst various other things, but one of the things they did was they gave me the cards to shuffle, and I thought, Oh, okay, right. Well, that's another podcast. But anyway, so I shuffled all the cards and did all the reversals, and then I handed them back, and they sat there and they turned them all round, right? So they're upright. And we went, we don't do any of that reversal nonsense here. Oh no, that's just for the people that go to these tarot schools that want to keep you on for an extra year to get more money out of you. I thought this is gonna be a good reading.
Oh no.
What
That
kind
was
of
their
reading
word.
was that?
Pardon?
That was a crap reading, wasn't it? I mean,
Terrible. But I mean, there was a whole load of clues that it was going to be a terrible reading, you know. And yeah, to be fair, I went in and I said, this is what I would like my reading to be about. You know, I sort of, you know, I kind of was quite clear what I wanted it to be about. And I walked out of that place 45 minutes later or whatever. And the thing I'd asked for the reading to be about was not mentioned, not once.
Oh, that's bad.
Just,
wow.
Oh no.
the
Oh.
reversals was just like the part of it. And I thought, 35 years means nothing, really.
Well, that's the whole, oh, the universe wants you to know something else. Like, to hell with that. I came and I asked this question.
I know.
The universe gave you the answer to my question. It's up to you to interpret it now.
Yeah.
So that's
anyway,
the main thing.
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah,
those reversals are an amazing interpretation tool. Seriously, my poor little student, she was like, I couldn't believe some of the stuff that was coming out of her mouth, but she's the one who talked herself into doing reversals because she's like, well, they're all upright. So I have to know where something's bad. I said, yeah, but that you're just making stuff up.
I've got to be honest as well, Sharon, all this stuff about keeping you on for another year to teach you reversals. I could teach someone how to do reversals in, I don't know, a couple of hours. Then it's up to them to use that every time they do a reading and practice it. But the actual kind of technique itself is a kind of one workshop. It will tell
one
you
lesson.
Well, yeah, the information you need to know. Not a year, but you need to use it every single time you do a reading from that moment onwards.
It might
Otherwise, then
take
it will
a
take
year
you.
of practice on your own, you know, and feedback to get it. But, you know, some people are going to pick it up faster than others. That intuition is already whizzing, you know, but yeah, we could teach it in a couple hours, but it's up to the person
exactly
utilizing it to do it. That's how long it'll take. Wow. Could you imagine keeping a student just on reversals for a year? Right there. He was talking about teaching keywords.
And that's how you know you're in a bad school, folks.
Yeah.
But no, it's an absolute pleasure to read in reverse. And as I say, like, it's interesting though, isn't it, that all three of us, just however we first approached the tarot, whatever book we happened to pick up or whatever, it told you about reversals. So that assumption was just made from day one that was part of it. So going back to the beginning of the podcast, I just thought, well, this is part of what I have to do.
I never even considered not reading with reversals. I think the first time I saw that people didn't was in a Facebook forum about 6 years ago or so. I was like, I couldn't do that. So
do you know that? Do you know there's that yes no game where you don't say yes or no and you have to talk for basic. Oh, it used to be on the television, right? And somebody would interview you and try to get you to say yes or no, and you have to avoid saying yes or no for like a minute or something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I never heard of that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just like a fun game, and it's like, can you last for a minute without saying yes or no, with someone just keep firing questions at you that are kind of pushing for yes no answers, right? And I feel that that's like reversals. I'd find it really hard I would have to take the challenge of not doing reversals. I'm so far gone with it.
It loses the oomph. The uprights lose their oomph. You know, back to what we talked about before, right? Like
Yeah.
if they're all upright, then they're just all upright.
Would it feel like you were reading a sort of a child's book if you didn't have reversals? Like you were reading something that was aimed at sort of 6-year-olds or something rather than adults?
Yeah.
It does feel like a step back. It does. Yeah. Can I give my example of when I don't?
Yeah.
For the other side, the only exception for when I don't read with reversals is when I'm using the Marseille Tarot deck. And that's because those cards are symmetrical, some of them, especially the suit of coins. 5 coins this way and 5 coins this way, you know, upright and reverse, are going to look exactly the same.
Right.
And on a lot of decks that are just like the pip decks that don't have any differentiation, you'd either have to mark them, which I'm not writing on my decks, thank you, or you just can't read with them. So how I get around that in that system, because it drove me nuts to think about not reading with reversals, is step 1, I never read with a single card in that deck because I feel like the power to do that is now gone. So I'll always read in like a string of 3 or 4 or 5. And what you would look for is like if you had, say, the Queen of Swords with a whole bunch of cup cards. That's the Queen of Swords reversed, right? Like how comfortable is a particular card in the elements surrounding it, kind of a thing. So that's sort of, so you don't work with so much like the visual aspect because you don't have a lot, like your cards aren't illustrated. So that will be my caveat to say when I don't read with reversals, it's a system that I treat very separately and very different.
Now,
but anytime I have an illustrated deck, I incorporate both.
Now, what about when you've got a deck, right, and the pattern on the back is different if you turn it reversed, so that it's kind of, even if the card is face down, you would know it was reversed from the pattern on the back because the pattern's different upwards to downwards. Cassidy's got a knowing thing here because I'm only just starting to read with other decks, so I haven't had this. Do tell.
So I went through a phase where I would not buy decks that didn't have reversible backs because it drove me insane. Because at the point when I'd stop shuffling, you know, there's that little bit where you look down and you see if that's upright or reverse. You know, you don't want any bias, especially in your shuffling. You want bias in your reading. You don't want it in your shuffling.
Yes.
So for quite some time, I refused to buy decks that didn't have completely reversible backs. Then I eased up a little bit and got decks that had kind of reversible backs. Like some are like even the Smith-Waite Centennial deck, that one it's not completely reversible. It's got the little death flower on it, but it's not a completely symmetrical flower, you know. So if you look hard enough at the back, you can tell whether or not it's upright or reversed. I did eventually get over it because it was, you know, you had to either you accept that was the artist's rendition of it, and then for those decks I just genuinely do not look. Like while I'm shuffling, while I'm spinning, I'm not looking, because you don't want to be conscious of different points of how many upright and reverse you have. So I will just shuffle cards down here, I will lay them out, and if they're face down, sure, I know, but I'll get there in a second anyway and know what that card is. So for me, I started there.
Do you think the artist who designed those decks with a non-reversible back wasn't kind of thinking or had a bit of an attitude about reversals and did it on purpose? I mean, do you think that, I mean, if I was an artist, which I'm not, I can't imagine I will ever do a tarot deck, but if I was an artist, I would make absolutely 100% sure that the back was not giving anything away. That's the point. Everything you've just said.
I never understood, because I'll see the comments of non-reversible backs that just one way or another, and I never understood what the problem was, because you still don't know what the card is. You still don't know what it's going to say until you turn it over. And then I also have this directional issue where a lot of times I can't tell if something's up or reverse. I cannot physically tell. So somebody's going to have to tell me. But it's just the back of the card. It's it's not going to tell you anything about the card itself. I mean, what if that reversed card that you're seeing on the top of the deck before you turn it over is the Three of Swords? That's how I'd want to see the Three of Swords if I had to get it, in that reversal. I don't know. I just don't get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was there.
I mean, it's hard because I've not done a reading with a non-reversed deck, but.
And I think, though, to answer your question, Mandy, about like when people are designing it, some deck designers just don't read with reversals, right? They could be in the camp where they don't, or there's a lot of artists that create tarot decks that aren't necessarily tarot readers, right?
Yeah.
They're just creating art to make that deck. So there's kind of both of those sides of the coin. Or if others might just have a vision for the back of the deck. It's a different piece of art, and maybe they didn't want to make it symmetrical. Maybe it's hand drawn. That'd be kind of hard to make perfectly symmetrical, but I'm not an artist. So yeah.
Some of them are really obviously different though, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's kind of intentionally, that's what the back looks like when the card is upright, and so that's the right way round.
There are a lot of artists out there, like Stanley's a good example. He made all of his dragons separately, and it was Los Cabero, I never say that right, that saw his dragons and said, hey, that would make an epic oracle deck.
Yes.
So he wasn't an oracle, he wasn't a tarot reader, he's just a damn good artist.
Yes.
So I think that happens a lot where the tarot companies see art that would make a really good deck. Yeah. So some of those artists are just creating their art.
No, I understand that. It's just, if I was the deck designer, and I would be saying to the artist, make sure that the back is the same.
Yeah.
Whether the card is one way round or the other, because some people like to read with the cards face down and not know whether the card is upright or reversed until they turn it over. Well,
according to the forums, it is a big deal. So if I were a deck designer, I would do the same.
When you go, I mean, I've not spent a lot of times on the forums, but I do think it was because of reversals that I came off. I think, I can't remember now, but would you say that it's 50-50 on the forums, like for or against reversals, or is it just mostly people that...
It's just chaos. You mentioned reversals and all hell broke loose.
It is, and it's hard to say what percentage, because there's certain camps that are just louder than others, Like when you're really passionate about your stance one way or the other, that person might just comment 1,000 times.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it gets knockdown, drag out, reversals, and then some certain card meanings, what a card is supposed to mean.
Yeah, and I mean, there's as many ways to read the cards as there are readers, right? So no one's ever going to agree, and hope that's a good thing we don't, because otherwise every time you went into a reading, everybody would be interchangeable.
It would be all keywordy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Wow, interesting. Well, I thought that was quite an interesting discussion. Having sort of talked about it, it's a shame. We should have maybe got somebody onto this podcast who doesn't read in reverse, who has read in reverse sufficiently to know why they're choosing not to do it, because I wouldn't be able to take an argument seriously from a person that's just never had the confidence to try it. Do you know what I mean? Or the stamina to sort of like persevere with it and try it. But if there was someone, and there is one person that we know who's a really good reader, been doing it a very long time and used to read in reverse, and has actually chosen not to, it would be really nice to do a podcast with that person, not to shout them down, but just to hear why they don't do it.
I think with her, it's more a matter of when she reads reversals, and I may be wrong, so I'm not speaking for her, but this is how I feel. She is so very intuitive. Like she's got to have some strong Pisces energy going on. But I think that she feels that the reversals block her intuition, that she just wants to be able to, not have any bias. It feels to her like bias.
Okay.
So if but her readings are consistent and accurate and damn good. Yeah. So she chooses not to use that tool, but the lack of that tool does benefit her. I just think that's a rarity.
So if you're that person, write to us. Let us know.
You know who you are. You will know who you are.
Yeah, you know who you are.
If you're a person, I guess, who has read for a long time with reversals and chose not to, let us know.
Yeah,
we'd love to talk to you.
I think at some point we should do a challenge where one of us does a reading and someone who doesn't read in reverse, who considers themselves to be a very, very strong, experienced reader, and who isn't just challenging us by not reading reverse on that occasion, who never reads with reverse, and we could see who comes up with the more detailed, accurate read. I mean, they might both be accurate readings, but one might have more detail than the other. It would just be very interesting exercise to do. So if you believe that you are that person and you want to sort of leave a message, that might be something that we do at some point. Oh. Because we should put our money where our mouth is, really, shouldn't we?
Yeah, I'd give that a go. That sounds like fun.
That's true.
That'd be terrifying, but
but ultimately it is the reader's choice.
Yeah, of course.
Again, if it doesn't feel right to you, don't let anybody shout you in to doing something.
No, but you are right. Yeah.
I would suggest at least giving it a try in personal readings or readings where you can get some feedback from. At least experiment with it instead of, because a lot of the people who shout you down have never even tried it. They don't even know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I think we could convert quite a few non-reverse people over to being reverse users.
If we can get past the shouting.
Within a couple of hours of a workshop, if they were genuinely interested.
Oh, yeah.
If you actually really wanted to give it a go.
I mean, why wouldn't you, right? Why wouldn't you try everything you possibly can to make your readings as nuanced, as specific, as detailed, as much va-va-voom in them as possible, Just, even if you haven't, just for the sake of exploring, learning, try.
Yeah. I remember I was teaching a group once. And they've been learning for quite a few months. And one person did a reading, and every single card was upright, and it was all this wonderful, happy, jolly, right, blah blah blah, right, wonderful thing. And I just went, that's amazing. And I went, did you remember to shuffle in the reversals? And they went, no. And they sort of admitted that they just can't do it. And it's like, well, you've not really tried. You've given up.
Yeah, can't or won't.
It takes a lot of practice. And if you're not willing to put the practice in interpreting the universe, then you got very little business having tarot cards. That doesn't mean you have to read with reversals, but you have to practice with your cards, period. It's like, okay, we had that Final Fantasy big thing, Japanese festival, right? All in Japanese, but there was a translator there who learned Japanese, and he went to college and had degrees and degrees and degrees, and he still got some of the translations wrong. how are we going to expect to translate the universe where we can't even find the language it speaks unless we practice with it and know it and really find out how it speaks to us individually? I don't even know where I was going with there.
Isn't it? It's like saying I only play it with my right hand. I don't do the left hand,
Yeah.
Which is fine, if you want to just play piano for yourself in the comfort of your own room, for your own whatever, that's different. But if you're charging people for your performances, be good at what you do. Have some integrity.
I agree. Well, thank you very much. It was lovely to see you, Cassidy. I hope that you're going to be a regular here.
Yes, thank you. This was awesome. Really enjoyed it.
And next week, we will we'll tell you what's coming up at the Pomegranate Grove. But next week, our podcast, Sharon, is
Major Tarot Timings. Is that right?
Yes. Major Tarot Timings. So, yeah.
Timing with the majors.
Yeah. So, yes, if you want to know how to use the majors to know when something's going to happen or how quickly or slowly or whatever, tune in next week. Please subscribe to our mailing list at the Pomegranate Grove, www.thepomegranate.grove.com. It's free to subscribe, and you will see all of our kind of videos and events. We've got like hundreds of videos on YouTube, like literally hundreds, and we do a certain amount of live events every month. And Cassidy, break the news of the week.
Great. So we have a Patreon.
Yay!
So there's 2 tiers. One, if you just want to support our YouTube and podcast channels, we would love you forever. The next higher up tier, we have a ton of great benefits, access to all of our live events, discounts on readings, discounts on a lot of other things that we've got going on. Some really, really cool updates and things going on over there. So head on over to our Patreon, the Pomegranate Grove, and you can sign up there.
But there's also plenty of like free stuff as well. So yeah, there's something for everybody.
Lots of free stuff.
So, and please, with regards to this podcast, please like, subscribe, share, all of that, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for engaging with us. Please like, subscribe, and share. To book a personal, in-depth reading and to learn more about our incredible courses in tarot and astrology, please visit our website www.thepomegranate.grove.com.